Senator Voinovich and I questions. The first is what
we have asked the Chinese to do more to get North Korea not only to the talks, because the exercise is not just getting them to the talks, it's getting them to the talks with a willingness to give up permanently their nuclear program. So certainly we have looked to the Chinese to do more. We expect more because, one, they're the host of the talks, and the talks are in Beijing, and secondly, it seems that China needs to use some of its leverage. Now, we have not told it how to use its leverage, whether it uses its political leverage, whether it makes an important decision to use its economic leverage. But certainly China has a lot of influence, and we are encouraging them to use as much influence as they need to use to get North Korea, one, to the talks, and two, to the talks in a willingness to give up these nuclear programs.
And if the Security Council is not an option, then have the Chinese offered us some alternative pressure points?
Certainly the Chinese have attempted to persuade the North Koreans, but I think you're quite right, Mr. Senator, that the Chinese have been clearly reluctant to use levers such as economic sanctions. Their major shipments into North Korea have to do with food and fuel, and so far they have been reluctant to use those levers. The Chinese, however, continue to believe that they will persuade the North Koreans to come back to the talks, and so they take a somewhat longer-term view of it than some other people may. I mean, they believe that North Korea will ultimately see that its interests are in coming back to the talks, and they have constantly urged patience.
Everyone seems to think that this anti-succession legislation the Chinese passed was very bad. And one of the points of view that I got from Premier Wen was that, yes, we did that. But the fact of the matter is that we're probably going to increasing more dialogue and more commercial exchange under this administration than at any time before.
I think clearly the dialogue with the opposition leaders was a good step, and I think it did allow the sort of change in the dynamic following the anti-secession law. And the problem with the anti-secession law is, of course, that it reiterates that they reserve the right to use non-peaceful means. And that's what I think many people were concerned about. Whether there is whether they're able to capitalize on this step, whether they're able to follow through, it remains to be seen.
Mr. Hill, appreciate your time that you've spent here this afternoon with the subcommittee, and